to him from the gang life. Now this is a whole other different thing right here. So originally, American African gangs was designed to what? Protect the community, right? They was there to protect the black community from racist white mobs that would roll through and attack black folks. Somewhere along the line though, that mission got usurped and got replaced with something else. And it turns out that as white flight started to take place, white people start moving out of the hoods, turn the hood into the hood, and we still have our warrior class out there, still needing something to fight, still needing something to protect against, and without the proper leadership, turned on itself. So one of the things that I say is that we as American Africans are suffering from an autoimmune disease, meaning that our defenses doesn't recognize our own body. And so we attack our own body. Y'all follow that? It's a really deep concept when you really deal with it. But as above, so below. As if within, so without. So that means that everything that you have inside of your body as far as function, anatomy, physiology, there's also a correlation for it out there in the bigger world and in the bigger universe. That's how our ancestors approached everything, including and especially psychology. We understood that more shootings and more violence is likely to occur in the summertime because it's heating up. What happens when you heat up water? It starts to boil, right? But on the molecular level, how are those molecules moving? Faster and more erratic, right? But when you start cooling it down, it starts going slow until it's just like a solid, right? And so it's the same thing when temperature starts to rise. We start going off, right? We start getting a little more erratic, right? We start bouncing off the walls. Some of us, nobody in this class, but those folks that didn't come today, that's what they out there doing right now. I saw some of them as I was coming in. All right, so he was on a mission to raise the consciousness and awareness of his crew, of his community, right? And so one of the things he knew that he had to meet people where they were. And so meeting people where they are means that if I'm coming at my gang banging brothers and sisters, I need to talk to them about what they care about, which is banging and representing their set, right? And so that being the case, he said, let me go ahead and kick some knowledge to my brothers and sisters that's banging, but the knowledge I'm gonna kick is gonna be directly relevant. So I'm gonna talk to them about gang enhancement laws, which are laws, who knows what those are? Oh yeah, look that stuff up. So what happens is that if you commit a crime and the police or the detectives or the investigators can identify that you're gang affiliated and they can tie the crime to your gang affiliation, they're gonna knock that sentence up pretty high. So one example he gave was like a simple carjacking. It's not simple for real, but simple in, as far as legal terms. A simple carjacking, he said you might get 3 years. He said you put that gang enhancement law on there and you're going for life. And so what he was doing, he was schooling his folks like, look y'all, this is how the game is changing. Another part, he said the OGs would teach them how to bang before we had all this technology, cell phone towers, right? Cameras everywhere at every traffic light and all that stuff. See, they was used to being able to bang it and dip into the shadows and get away with it. He said it ain't that way no more. Now, if you had your cell phone on you, it's binging off the towers. When you get arrested, they check the record of your location and now they know you was at the scene. He said you can't bang that way no more. So he started refining the thought process in that way. Not encouraging banging, but it's a little bit too much of a leap to say, man, y'all need to stop banging. And dude's pistol's still hot on his waist. You can't move it that quickly and that far. Y'all follow? And so he said, let me slow walk y'all. Let me show and prove. Let me show y'all how to wash this money a little bit. Not laundering, because that's illegal. But let me show y'all how to, what Jay-Z said, to quote the great philosopher Sean Carter. He said he turned crack rock into a chain of 40-40s. Sorry, my jewelry's so gaudy. Yeah, I ain't ready. I thought you said it was on it, Doc. Nipsey Hussle, he epitomized Dr. Du Bois, W.E.B. Du Bois's notion of double consciousness, right? But instead of what Dr. Du Bois was talking about, his double consciousness was between being an African man and being what the Western world or the white world calls a nigger. There's a quote from James Baldwin. He wrote a letter to his 12-year-old nephew. He said that you can only be defeated, I'm paraphrasing, by believing that you actually are what the white world calls a nigger. And so this is what Nipsey was dealing with. His nigger persona and the African core of himself, because y'all know that he was Eritrean, right? He was African. That's on the Horn of Africa. Used to be a part of Ethiopia, right? Which is the only uncolonized nation on the continent of Africa. So he comes from warriors. Warriors that fought and kicked the Italians' asses. True indeed. Check history, it's real. And so that's his lineage right there. So he had this double consciousness, and the deeper he got into it, especially when he went back home for the first time, he said he met his father's mother in Eritrea. That means he has an Eritrean grandmama. He had those hands touch his cheeks and kiss his face. That's deeper than any book you can read, any DNA test that you can take, right? He still has the blood pumping in his veins, not that far removed. That was his double consciousness. Last couple of points. He drew attention to what MLK highlighted in his speech to the American Psychological Association. Dr. King gave a speech to the APA 9 months before he was assassinated. And he talked about how people are quick to criticize what comes out of the hoods, but they neglect to look at the hoods itself. And he said that the actual people at fault were the ones that created the conditions that produced the people that you are so appalled by. So he wanted to turn the spotlight. It's like if I keep fishing in this pond, and every fish I pull out got 3 eyes on it. And I keep saying, man, these fish nasty. I keep throwing the fish away, throwing the fish away. Eventually I got to wise up and say, let me check out what's happening in this pond. Let me see if it's some of that BPA leaching out from the chemical corporation. Let me see if it's some of that Monsanto chemical leaching into the water, poisoning the fish, poisoning the people. Is that what's happening? Baltimore got ambient lead. Y'all know what ambient lead is? It's when lead is ambient, it's ever present, it's like ubiquitous. It's just in the air, it's just in the environment. And it comes from the lead-based paint in the housing, and when you open and close the windows, it turns into a dust. And because you open and close the windows, it gets airborne, and you just breathe it in, and your lungs directly related to your circulatory system, right? And so it goes in. Baltimore was the only place that I've ever heard a radio commercial, got badass kids in school. I'm paraphrasing. They didn't say that for real.
Oh,
man, that was like, it's possible though, right? We're getting there. But basically it was saying that it was lawyers promoting that they can sue if your child is having behavior and school-based problems. If they have elevated lead levels, blood lead levels. Freddie Gray had elevated blood lead levels, right? Elevated lead in his blood, which then turned into school-based issues and also behavior problems. They call it the lead checks. That's a nice, anybody from Baltimore? You know about the lead checks? So there's a thing called lead checks up there in Baltimore, right? Ask about it. It's very real. But again, it's the conditions. And so he was bringing up that same thing that MLK was pointing out. That no, we got to talk about the conditions. Quit judging the people without talking about what's producing this situation. Last point on this slide. He was scheduled to meet with the LAPD, some organization affiliated with LAPD, the day after he died, right? Gang life, that's a no-no. Don't talk to police. Now, some gang members would understand. It's an OG, he's trying to make things easy for us, trying to get things done. But some other folks is like, dude, you talking to the police. What you mean? And so when you look at the code is what it is. Talking to the police is a no-no as far as gang banging is concerned. Especially if you're talking about what? Eradicating gang banging. Because that means that I might be getting eradicated based on this conversation. And you know too much to be going and talking to them about eradicating gang banging. This is all, that part is real, but I don't know if somebody actually looked and said those things. But what I know is that that's a no-no. Y'all follow?